Blockchain Show is a podcast that demystifies cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology.
Welcome back to the Blockchain Show. Today we've got a special guest, Michael Sanders. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Ethan, thanks for having me. I'm doing really well. How are you?
Great. Thanks for asking. Horizon Blockchain Games. Being an avid gamer and blockchain enthusiast is kind of the perfect thing for me, but I'd rather hear you talk a little bit about it. So, Michael, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on there.
Yeah. So, my name's Michael. I am the co-founder and chief storyteller at Horizon. We're the creators of Skyweaver, which is a free-to-play Web3 trading card game. Fortunately, it was named 2022's best blockchain game. And we're also the creators of Sequence, which is an all-in-one developer platform and smart wallet that makes building Web3 games, applications, and experiences easy. And so as a company, Horizon is all about making Web3 easy, fun, and acceptable for users and builders.
Awesome. And tell me a little bit about the before blockchain era for you. When did you see, this is a tool that we could actually use to improve people's experience?
So I was first introduced to Bitcoin in 2010, and within like 30 seconds, I thought, wow, this is the future. This is where finance and money are going in this decentralized manner. And then I became more deeply involved in the space when I met Vitalik Buterin, Ethereum's inventor, in January 2014. So a year before Ethereum's launch. And at the time, he was talking about Ethereum and smart contracts and decentralized governance and things of this nature, which were brand new concepts at the time. And I was and still am convinced that he's from the future and he's here to teach us about technology, economics, and love. And that's when I fell in love with this notion of Web3, this next generation of internet experiences and applications where both users and creators share in the value of the ecosystems they participate in. It just seemed much more symbiotic to me. And so I spent the next few years really trying to understand how can we actually usher in these technologies so that people around the world use and benefit from them. Because, crypto, blockchain, Web3 has been very esoteric up until more recently. But I was really trying to think, like, how can we actually get people using and benefiting these technologies? And I didn't have many great ideas, but then I met Peter Kieltika, who's one of my co-founders and our CEO. And in 2017, he was the first person, to my knowledge, to conceptualize blockchain games. And when he talked to me about it for about 5 minutes, I thought, holy shit, this is it. This is how we can welcome the world to Web3. And we can do it in a really fun and loving way. So, we founded Horizon in late 2017 with this mission to really make it fun, easy, and accessible for everyone.
Man, yeah, meeting Vitalik will do that. I would imagine. I haven't had the privilege yet, but that's early, man. That's impressive. Yeah, very cool. I've heard a little bit about blockchain tech used in gaming. I've always kind of wondered, like, when is it going to affect the kind of the mass gamer culture? Because you got like the hardcore tech enthusiasts, you've got the PC gamers, kind of the more casual console gamers and stuff like that. And I always wondered, is it just going to kind of slowly work its way in the background where people aren't going to notice it anymore, kind of like other technology, or is it going to be like this big change that everyone's going to like jump behind? And I think just in general, a lot of blockchain tech, I always wondered, like, the whole mass adoption, how is that going to work with people? Is it, I don't know, I just, like 7-8 years ago, I thought, like, man, everybody's just going to jump on board, but I don't know. It's not that it's hard to get people to care about it. It's just people are kind of used to what they're used to. I don't know if you run into any kind of like challenges with implementation, or is it just something that, since it's baked in, there it is. I don't know if that's, sorry, it's a bad question, but you can take that anyway.
I understand exactly what you mean, Ethan, because similarly, when I first got into the blockchain space, and I heard about Ethereum, I thought, oh, it's going to be, a matter of a couple of years and the whole world will be onboarded to these technologies. But like you say, they're accustomed to what they're used to doing. And they're busy, and they're not necessarily going to fumble through difficult user experiences for some theoretical benefit that isn't tangible to them, or directly impacting their lives. So I think that how we'll achieve this mainstream adoption is through great experiences. And I think content is king in this manner, right? Like if you create great games, if you create Web3 experiences that have Web3 technology and digital ownership and the advantages that those two things afford to users, and you do it in a way that's just engaging and fun and isn't about the technology per se, but it's more about the benefits that they afford to the end user, then that's how we welcome the world to these new technologies. Because, of course, you and I are early adopters, we're believers, but most people aren't going to be, right? Like they'll be part of the larger cohort of people who eventually adopt it. And it'll be because there's a game or an application that they just want to use it, like there's many aspects of this game or application that they find enjoyable and valuable and worthwhile. And there will be a Web3 component baked into it. I don't even think the Web3 component will be at the forefront. I think a lot of people won't realize that they're interacting with the blockchain or with crypto in any manner whatsoever. We even see the term NFT sort of being deprioritized, right? Because it has some baggage around it. And we're now seeing terms like digital collectibles being perceived more favorably. And there are a lot of people who claim to hate NFTs, but who will snatch up a digital collectible, which is the same underlying technology. It's just different nomenclature. And the reason they're excited about the digital collectible is because of the properties it affords, such as the ability to own and trade and interoperate in various virtual worlds. Like I think if you look at something like what Nike and EA have done. So for those who aren't familiar, Nike created this program called Dot Swoosh, where they sell digital shoes. And these shoes are NFTs, they're securely tied to the blockchain. I don't think they use that terminology, I'm not sure, but I think they just refer to them as digital collectibles. And now Nike's done a partnership with EA so that if you own these digital Nike shoes, you can actually wear them and display them in EA games such as FIFA and Madden. And there are some folks who claim to really dislike NFTs, but are super enthusiastic about these digital shoes because I think they're seeing the utility and value about them, and that, oh, this is really cool. I own an item and I can show it off in these different virtual worlds. Maybe it gives me some cool abilities. And I think that's what will welcome the world to it rather than some, theoretical value proposition that isn't as tangible.
That's a really good point. Just to kind of go a little bit further for some of those people who may be curious, why do we need this? What would be some other specific benefits this could bring to the gaming industry?
Yeah, so I think at least as a jumping off point, I think the advantages that Web3 affords to both gamers and developers revolves around the ownership of the items. And if we think of traditional video games, right, like Web2 games, and we ask ourselves, why do players buy game items in traditional video games? Well, we think it's because either one, there's a utility around it, it allows you to do something in the game. A second reason is status and the ability to just show it off in the game world. And then the third is around the pleasure of collecting. And so we think those are the three primary reasons people buy items in Web2 games. But when we add Web3 to the mix, it unlocks at least 5 new reasons, we believe, for why someone will want to buy them. And then so the reasons in Web3, you also have utility, status, pleasure of collecting, but then you add underlying value. Like the items can have a value associated with them because they exist in a decentralized manner. And then it also allows you to trade or resell those items. It doesn't have to be for profit, right? But just the ability that if you've paid for something and you get bored with it, you can sell it later for some amount of money and then take that money and go do something else with it. Third new reason is around cross-game or cross-brand interoperability. So, there's kind of visions of being able to bring game items from one game to another. I think as a first step, we'll probably see game items existing in different virtual worlds that maybe are less so video games. And if you look at, the Nike and EA collaboration, I think it makes a lot of sense, right? Like you own these Nike shoes in the Nike world, but then you can also wear them in the EA world. And then maybe you can also wear them in, like, Ethan, you could build a virtual world, right, where you welcome people to display their Nike shoes, and they could display in different formats too. Like all these different worlds could render those items differently. So, the items you own, you start being able to bring them to all of these different online virtual experiences as an expression of your identity. And then those cosmetic items too, they could have use in multiple virtual world or multiple games as well. Like maybe it works in Madden and FIFA. Maybe it also works in NBA 2K by, that the 2K game studio owns and operates. And maybe they also work in some skateboard game, or, a race car game, like anything. It could exist anywhere. So I think that's really cool. And then another added benefit is this notion of persistence. So if you own a Web3 item, a digital collectible, it exists forever. It doesn't, even if the game creator disappears, you still actually own that item on the blockchain. And, someone else could create a virtual experience that enables that item. And this also allows for communities to kind of take over and run with games in the event that a game developer, let's say, runs out of funding or just loses interest in supporting a game. So I think this notion of persistence is really cool. And then lastly is around, like, I think just profile and collection history, because now this pleasure of collecting is taken to a whole new level, and you can have an aggregate of all of your different collectibles in your wallet that you navigate all these different virtual worlds with, again, being an expression of your identity. And it's also kind of like a universal expression across all the different virtual worlds, if you so choose. So I think those are a number of the benefits for players when it comes to Web3. And there's also this idea of, like, where user generated content will go. So I'll just use the game we made, Skyweaver, as an example, which is a trading card game. Theoretically, we could allow folks in our community to create, we could run a contest and be like, okay, like top 10 best cards get implemented into the game. And then let's say that every time those items trade in the marketplace, the creators of those cards actually earn a royalty fee. So, maybe they earn like 5% of the sale every time it trades, right? And then you're creating this like deeper relationship between your community and your game. And I also think it affords game builders this opportunity to have deeper relationships with their players, where they can reward their best players in new ways, and also welcome like other brands to reward their players. So just imagine, like, I'll just use 2K as an example again, NBA 2K. Let's say that there's a bunch of users who, in the shoe builder in the game, they create Adidas shoes. And then the brand Adidas can look at the blockchain and see, like, oh, all of these players actually paid to have Adidas shoes in the game, and they're Web3 collectibles. And then Adidas could be like, we're going to gift, like, an airdrop, a voucher to all of these users who have Adidas shoes. And that could give them, like 50% off their next physical merchandise purchase of Adidas wear. Or it could be an invitation to some special event that Adidas is putting on as a token of appreciation. So I think it just unlocks these new ways of collaborating between everyone, right? Like between individuals, between brands, between communities, that all of which I think are really exciting.
Especially with, all the new technology coming out, thinking about spatial computing, VR, AR. It's an incredible time to be alive, for sure.
Yeah, totally.
You were talking a little bit about Skyweaver, and I'm just curious, because I didn't get a chance to play it yet. How difficult is it to set up the wallet, to get started?
It's 2 clicks. You just sign on with social or email, and through that you create a wallet. And of course, Skyweaver is built with our Sequence developer platform and smart wallet. And so you're creating this Sequence wallet, but it's pretty behind the scenes. Like, a lot of folks don't even know they've created a wallet right off the bat, because they don't need to know right away. Like, we're just trying to get them into the game. So they just sign in with social or email, type in a username, and boom, they can start playing.
You were talking a lot about kind of the interoperability between games. Like, that's something I was into that idea a while back, and I was asking people, and they were saying, well, I don't know, different shading in different games. I don't know how that would work. So, But it sounds like it's it's come a long way. I can imagine there's going to be a lot of work just to keep things going. And like, I have so much respect for developers who just, keep the things going. The stuff I love. Like, I play a game that's like 25 years old, and they're still updating it. And it's just, it's incredible.
Which game is that?
Age of Empires 2.
Cool.
So that game aside, like, it'd be really awesome to have items from, basically my childhood that I could bring along and keep going into new things and, share with my kids and stuff. Because like you lose stuff in the real world. Like it just happens. You move or, things fall apart. But digitally, I think it's hard for some people to wrap their heads around. Like, why would I want a digital collectible? Like, what am I going to do with an NFT? And it's hard to explain sometimes when people aren't really in that world. Like, well, it opens up a long conversation and then we end up getting off topic, that kind of thing. But what would you say to those people? Because I think sooner or later it's going to make sense. But for now, I'm sure a lot of folks are kind of wondering, why do we need this? Why do we need collectibles on the internet, or however they would say it?
Yeah. I mean, I think, there's already a ton of people who are passionate about collectibles. Like if you look at gamers, right? Like virtually all gamers have some game items. Now, most folks haven't paid for them, but they have game items in some manner or another, right? So I think that's about 3 billion people in the world. And let's say like, whatever percentage of them have game items, they're all already attuned to, the utility and the value of having digital collectibles. And I think people who aren't attuned to that yet, like it's totally okay. And I think other technologies will help them sort of see the value in it. Things like the Apple Vision Pro, I forget its name, but those glasses where like, this type of technology and hardware is going to unlock all sorts of new virtual experiences. And imagine you're just interacting with your friends and you feel with this headset on and you feel as though you're in physical proximity to one another. And as we advance this technology more and more, it starts transcending geographical limitations whereby we can just be with our friends no matter where in the world they are and feel that way. And you might have like a way to represent yourself in those worlds. It could be digital clothing, for example, right? And digital clothing has fewer limitations than physical clothing. So like you could own like an invisible cloak or, a fire breathing cape or just something super stylish that's like luminous and whatever, right? And like you could really cherish that item. And because if it exists as a Web3 item, like you truly own it, and like you could decide to trade it or sell it or pass it on to your children or gift it to a friend or get another item and gift it to someone, right? And as virtual worlds become more immersive, I think there'll be all sorts of collectibles that exist inside of them. Just the same way that like when we're in a physical world, right? Like we have, in our houses, we have artwork hanging on the wall, or we'll have books on the coffee table, or even just furniture, right? And like you could have these virtual landscapes that mimic all of those things, like coffee table book and like furniture and artwork, in addition to things that we haven't yet imagined because of this new, like the fewer limitations of being in the digital world. And so, yeah, I guess just like in summary, I think most people or a lot of people already kind of see that there's something special about digital collectibles. They just haven't had the opportunity to own them yet. And then for those who aren't attuned to digital collectibles, they'll start to kind of appreciate them as these other virtual experience kind of come online and come to fruition.
Yeah, building in games I don't know why, it's just something I gravitate towards lately. It's just so enjoyable. A lot of games you'll spend, sometimes 10, 15 minutes at the beginning just creating your character. And like, I always think how great would it be if I could just bring over my guy, just have all my stuff right away, and it sounds like it's a lot closer. There's certainly games doing that now. I'm just thinking across the whole industry, interoperability. That's something I've been waiting for a while. But it brings up when you're talking, it brought up the idea of play to earn That's something I used to, especially when I was younger. Games started to change. You started to buy season passes and add-ons. What was already kind of expensive for me at the time, it's like, oh man, if I want to keep playing, I gotta get the next season, or I gotta get these items. And it's like, man, this is going to be $100 game before too long. But I'm not angry about that, because you think about the time you get, the enjoyment. I think it's definitely worth it. But I always kind of like the idea of grinding it out, earning, which it's usually in-game currency. But now we're talking about a shift towards assets that you can potentially get out of the game, trade, sell, that sort of thing. Can you talk a little bit about the shift towards play to earn, and how Web3 games can kind of help facilitate that?
Yeah. So I think you can have, just as a caveat, the term play to earn has a bit of a dirty connotation to it these days, right? And like some folks will say things like play to own. That's what we refer to in Skyweaver, or play and earn, or new terminologies as well. Because I think, so first off, I think it's an incredible innovation that you can actually own the digital items that you're playing with, that you either win through gameplay or through some quest, or you pay for, right? And by being skilled at a game, yeah, perhaps you can actually win and unlock enough game items that you truly own, that you could sell them and you earn in the game. I think one of the faults or the downfalls of some of kind of the first generation of Web3 games is that they placed so much emphasis on play to earn. And then it sets the expectation that if you're coming to this game, it's all about earning. And I think that can have some damaging effects, right? Because one, let's say only 10% of people actually can earn something in the game because it's a skill-based game. Well, then the other 90% might leave disappointed because they're like, oh, I came here to earn some money, right? And now I'm not. So it's a disappointing experience. On the contrary, if you allow everyone to earn, if everyone's earning from it, well, then you have an economy that's unsustainable. It's not going to last long. Because if everyone's trying to extract value from it, it has a very limited life cycle. So the key is to building an economy in which there's value being contributed to it, and there's some percentage of folks who can extract value from it. But I think it presents challenges if you make that the primary motivation for playing the game in the first place. But I do think it's really cool to have that component built in. And that's why I think it is really good for skill-based games if you design the economy very thoughtfully, because then those who are really skilled will receive that reward, and then they'll publicize that, right? Like they'll make it known to others, like, yeah, if you're really good at this, you can earn, more so than the game needing to like officially declare itself as a play to earn game.
Yeah, that's true. It's well said. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I was looking at you guys' website earlier, Skyweaver. I kind of went down the rabbit hole, put myself in a game designer's shoes, and just wondering, it seems like pretty powerful tools you guys are providing, and I'm just kind of curious the challenges that come with developing Web3 games, and maybe you could elaborate for the audience, how Horizon is helping people kind of overcome them and develop these unique experiences for gamers.
Yeah, when we started on our journey 5.5 years ago, we really had this mission for Skyweaver that it would be playable and accessible and fun for any gamer that was interested in the content, that was interested in strategy or trading card games. We didn't want you to have to know anything about Web3 or blockchain to play. So in order to deliver this seamless experience, we had to solve so many blockchain infrastructure and UX pain points, so many of them. And throughout our journey, we identified 7 major hurdles to building a Web3 game. And I'll list them quickly. So like the first one is wallet creation and like the account creation to get into the game in the first place. Then there's friction around gas fees. Like how do you deal with gas fees? Then you have to make it easy for players to buy your items in game. And then you have to make it so you can display those items to your users in the game in real time. There's, as a fifth consideration, there's, you have to think about tokens, like what kind of tokens you'll use in the game, whether it's NFTs, i.e. non-fungible tokens, or SFTs, i.e. semi-fungible tokens. And then you need to think about the trading and marketplace experience. And then as a final technical consideration, you need to think about what network, what blockchain will you deploy your game on. And so these were like the major areas, and there was a lot of more nuanced, like, hurdles we faced as well over the years. But we solved every one of these issues around, creating accounts, abstracting away gas fees so you can have gasless transactions, making it super easy to buy digital collectibles and NFTs with your credit or debit card. Just making the transaction and purchasing experience as familiar as any online shopping or Web2 experience, so that folks don't need to learn any new technologies and don't experience any friction. And then, yeah, we allow you to build in-game or branded marketplaces where you can control the UX. You can even earn fees from the transactions that flow through your marketplace. So we solved all of these issues, and our solutions became the stack of technologies that make up Sequence, which is our all-in-one developer platform and smart wallet. It's really this modular stack of tools that you can use as an all-in-one solution. Like, you can just take them all together and it'll make building your Web3 game or experience nice and simple. It takes care of all the onboarding and payments and infrastructure that you would need. Or you can pick and choose the different pieces. If, maybe you've built your own solution for something, or you have a different service provider in mind, our tools play nicely with other Web3 compatible tools. So yeah, that's what we're, primarily offering to the market, is this full stack for developers and brands to build with as they enter Web3.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, forgive me. I think I said Skyweaver. I meant to say Sequence in my question.
Oh, no worries. I knew what you meant.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. I really like what you guys are doing. In your opinion, this is hard to gauge, the kind of like the current outlook for gaming and Web3. What excites you in the developments that are happening or the innovations in this space?
Yeah. So, I think the outlook for games leveraging Web3 is incredibly bright and optimistic. We have 67 projects currently leveraging Sequence, and some of the games are live, some of them are not. And of the 67 projects, about 75% of them are games. The other ones are things like sports teams doing digital collectibles experiences, or fashion and retail and beauty brands doing loyalty programs and things of that nature, or building marketplaces. But yeah, and then there's hundreds more projects that we're in various stages of discussions with. So I'm really excited to see that all of these games and all of these big consumer brands are looking at Web3 as this opportunity to create deeper and more mutually beneficial relationships with their audiences. So we were at 3XP last week, which was the first, in my opinion, really high caliber conference dedicated purely to Web3 games. And seeing some of the games there, some of which were leverage Sequence to build, like, these games are such high quality, and the way they're marketing to the world it's not about like, come play this Web3 game, come own these items. It's like, no, like, this is just a great game. There is this Web3 component built into it where you can own the items. But the major selling point is that this is an awesome gaming experience. So some of the projects that I'm really excited about, like, there's this game called Hunters on Chain by Boomland, which is a really cool action role-playing game that's built using Sequence. Another game called Tower Conquest Metaverse Edition. It's a tower defense game on mobile that's super cool, built by a studio called Super Gaming out of India, one of the biggest game developers in India. Also, there's this game called Shrapnel, which is this first-person shooter game that's like super high fidelity and just looks phenomenal. Another game called Wildcard, which is an amazing like battler and trading card combination with incredible graphics, and just like, there's kind of like there's like a little bit of a Rocket League component to it, at least from my perspective, like how the graphics and everything, but it looks amazing. And then there's so many more IPs that are kind of in stealth at the moment. Some really big, like, super famous films and IPs that everyone listening would recognize that are building Web3 games. They haven't announced them yet, but it's just like so exciting to see. it's from like some of the largest studios in the world to brand new startups in the Web3 space, right? That are all looking at this new world of Web3. And so, yeah, I'm just super excited to see these games come out for players to enjoy them over the next like 6, 12, 18, 36 months into the years to come. To the point that I think like most new games will leverage Web3 in some manner or another. And eventually we won't even use the term Web3 because it'll just be ubiquitous. The same way that no one, I don't know, I don't think anyone refers to things as internet games, right? Like they just call them games because that's where so many games are. And I think we'll experience the same thing with Web3.
Yeah. Or maybe like a component of the game, like sometimes I still say like, well, it's online, this is not, I'm dating myself, because my kids are like, what is that?
Yeah.
Online? It's like, yeah, it's connected, it's the internet. And they're like, okay.
Yeah. Like, they're like, isn't everything online?
That's funny, man. Man, yeah, there's a lot of really cool projects, cool games that I wasn't even aware of. It makes me think like I need to actively seek out some new developments, because like I'm just waiting for things to come to me, and that's not good enough, because this space, it seems like there's just like a lot of independent or not, I don't want to say smaller, but or counter to the main. I don't know. I live in Los Angeles. There's like several gigantic game studios here.
Yeah.
And it seems like some of the bigger companies are just buying up smaller ones. And now we're getting these like humongous like Goliaths of game developing going on. And every once in a while I'll come across like an indie game. I'm like, man, this is so much fun. Like this is awesome. It's like I want to give my money to that project, because I'm like, if these guys keep making this kind of stuff, like I can only imagine what it's going to be like. Man, yeah, for people listening who are interested in some of this, Web3 type games, like where would you most people probably already know where to go, but for maybe people who don't know yet, like where would they, I know you mentioned that conference, but obviously we got Horizon, and we'll share all the links and everything in anything you want in the show notes. But what would you recommend to people wanting to get into the space? Like, where would they go?
Yeah, like I guess if you're a builder looking to build a game, go to sequence.xyz and you can join our Discord and reach out to us, and we'll help you with our tech stack. You'll be able to build your game. We're soon going to have an ecosystem page on sequence.xyz so that even players, they can just look and be like, oh, cool, there's all of these Web3 games that I can click on and just go explore. I think if you go to, I forget the URL, it's on Polygon's site, but Polygon has a Adapt Discovery page. Maybe Ethan, you can find the direct URL and like link it in the show notes, but Polygon has like a dApps page where you can look at all the different games that are online, and you can go and try them out. Or DApp Radar also lists a lot of games. I think those are some good places to go from like a discovery perspective. And there are some Web3 game launchers coming online. One that I'm really excited about that I don't think I'm at liberty to speak about just yet, but really big brand that is releasing its own launcher for Web3 games. I think Magic Eden is probably also a good place to look for Web3 games. And Sequence is integrated with Magic Eden. You can discover games there as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. A lot of times I think I can kind of predict what's going to come, whether it's gaming experiences or new titles, or even just platforms or tech to play it on, and I'm amazed how wrong I am constantly. It was just kind of a good thing. We've heard about different headsets coming, Apple's working on this, and that's always like, okay. And then I watched the video and I was like blown away. I was like, oh man, this is the first iteration that they're working on. Like, what else is coming? So to kind of like take that thought into more of what you're working on, and after going to that conference, from your perspective, what do you think the future holds? Are you any upcoming trends or advancements that we should be aware of that, we couldn't conceptualize, or is that yet to be determined?
Well, yeah, I think it's certainly yet to be fully determined, but I do think we're going to see a lot of game studios, some of the, the big behemoths that you were alluding to earlier, in all the way down to the small indie studios, exploring with light Web3 integrations. I think just like testing things out in a very light manner where maybe they're releasing some kind of cosmetic item that doesn't have a direct impact on the game design or the game balance, but is sort of a reward, a luxury reward to the players that, are most valuable to them or most recognized or contribute the most to the community or something. And just kind of like testing the waters with what sort of Web3 integrations make the most sense. There will still be teams that do everything fully on chain and are going to go like all in on what they're building on chain. But I'm really excited to see what these light integrations discover, because ultimately, I think that with gaming, we can explore so many new kinds of economies and we can iterate on them fairly quickly, much more quickly than you can on like a macroeconomic global scale. And I think these game economies that we discover will begin to inform real world economics. And because we're also, becoming a more virtually and remote and decentralized kind of species and society, our virtual identity is having as can have as much weight as our physical world identity, right? Like I've had conversations with folks recently where they're like, oh, does it like what will play more of a significant role in terms of governance and governments? Will it be the physical nation, country in which I live in, or will it be more some form of like digital nation, like the communities that I participate in? What will have a greater impact on my life? And I think there's a reasonable case to be made that, we'll probably still live in these physical nations with the borders and everything, but how we interact will be largely influenced by the digital communities and virtual worlds that we participate in, because we have more freedom to select, and there's more motility and ability to just move around. So yeah, I think I know that's like a long-winded answer, but some of the trends I think is just the exploration of new game design and economy design, and then what that will unlock for the future.
Yeah, man, that really gets me thinking. I hope that the internet can be a place where we can all come together like that. I know in some places of the world it's harder to get access, and can be potentially dangerous for some people if they're trying to just connect with other people, which is crazy to me. But and there's some things going on. Like I don't know what's going on in the U.S. with the Restrict Act. That was kind of concerning to me a little bit. If you read through some of the bills, some of the stuff was like, you can't even use a VPN, you can't.
Wow.
And it's like, wow, I get it. I get maybe from the government's point of view, trying to, if they have good intentions, hopefully, but what are we throwing out if that goes through? And it's just like, the reason I bring it up is like, I think towards the future, and I always thought blockchain in general is a way to kind of protect people's freedom or sovereignty. It's like, what if the world's going through turmoil, but we can come together in a game. We can figure out like we're not that different. We all have the same needs. And I know that's kind of like a weird hippie thing to say about a video game, but some of my like favorite friendships have been through games. People I've never met in the real world, which I know my parents are probably like, what? That's crazy. But it's I don't know. It's a beautiful thing,
I agree, man. And I think the ability for individuals to own their own data and have the ability to share it in the way that they choose is very important for the sovereignty that you mentioned. And I agree with you, man. Like deep down, fundamentally, I think all humans are looking to experience love. They want to feel and experience connection with other folks. And virtual worlds are wonderful places to experience that and connect with people in ways that, you know, maybe aren't as accessible in the physical world. And then, of course, the physical world has advantages too, right? Like there's just kind of different playgrounds to explore in and to find those connections and what really invigorates and excites you as an individual. So I think, I think there's going to be so many new experiences, both virtual and physical, that will really inspire a lot of people.
Very well said. Yeah, well, Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your perspective and sharing everything you did with us. If there's anything at all you'd like to leave us with, certainly if you don't mind sharing some of the places people can go again, or maybe some places to connect, or just anything really. Yeah, I'd like to give you the opportunity.
Yeah, just so you can learn everything about us at horizon.io. And there you'll find links to Sequence. It's sequence.xyz if you're a builder. If you want to play our game Skyreaver, it's skyreaver.net. And yeah, would love to hear from you guys. Come join our Discord. You can find me on Twitter if you like. It's just @_ Michael Sanders. And would love to hear from anyone who is just really excited about the Web3 space.
Wonderful. Well, Michael Sanders, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again for coming on today.
Thanks, Ethan. Really appreciate it.